Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
Any concern about Hendon Hooker and Tennessee's defense? It is Chalk Talk with Chris Landry. I'm Dave Hooker. Be sure and hit that like and subscribe button so you can receive Tennessee and SEC content via our YouTube channel. Go to offthehooksports.com as well, and we'll get you covered. Brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue. They've got the pellets, they've got the sauces, they've got the rubs, and just absolutely unbelievable. Also, Steve Ray's Midnight Oil, which is right there in Ottawa. They do all my car service. They should do yours as well. So, Chris, let's start with Tennessee's defense. How concerned should Tennessee be about their defense and what they put on the field against Pitt? It's about what we thought, but I wonder how things shake out moving forward.
Well, I still think coverage is going to be a problem. How many teams are going to be able to exploit that? And we don't know. We'll see that as the season goes along. Florida, for example, not throw the football well, and I thought they missed a lot of open guys. And I thought Pitt wasn't very good throwing the football. So, that sometimes can give you a little bit of a false confidence that you're doing better than you really are, because I thought there were some open guys for Pitt. They couldn't take advantage of it. So it really comes down to what type of pressure do you put up front. I thought the base pressure was okay, nothing special. I thought when they went to their blitz pressure, they were really good. I thought they mixed it up well. They caused a lot of problems for Pitt's offensive line. So, look, I think this defense played well because it had to carry the day. I mean, they were put in some holes, and they stood up and they made plays. There are two reasons for that. They played well, and they forced some issues for Pitt, and Pitt wasn't very effective in converting. Pitt had many of opportunities deep inside the plus area for them in Tennessee and against Tennessee, and Tennessee's defense came up big, whether it's with some negative plays by Pitt or inability to capitalize. But I thought the defensive line graded out well. I thought the linebackers, which has some holes, didn't do a bad job at all, particularly their second level pressure. The secondary, wasn't bad. I thought that they did some good things as well. I would say that their performance was pretty good, but the result playing that way won't be as consistent as Tennessee gets against better offenses. So I would be concerned, Dave, in that this is not a great defense. I thought they played great in moments last week relative to who they were playing, and I think that they should be credited for that. I think you've mentioned this before, and it's a well constructed point. This Tennessee defense is not going to be great week in and week out. Can they create enough turnovers? Because that's going to be stops. And this is how their defense is kind of built. Can we bring pressure and create turnovers? Create mistakes by the opposing offense so that we steal an extra possession. I think that's going to be the key. That's going to define this defensive team. And it's going to really depend upon how well they are able to do that. It's probably going to determine their ceiling defensively this year.
We certainly take all this with not a grain of salt, but in perspective, in that Tennessee did win the game. But Jeremy Banks, just your thoughts now that you have about a game and a half of tape to watch him. What do you think of his play so far this season?
Well, I mean, in fact, I'm going to look it up as I talk. I want to give the exact grades. I mean, I think there's overall. I think that there's a lot of improvement there. I want to make sure that I'm accurate with how I make sure I'm not. I look at so many games. I want to get my exact grades for their entire linebackers, including Banks. But to answer your question, I think there's some room for improvement there. I think that there's he's got some talent, but they need better play from that position overall, because I think what's going to happen as we go forward is you're going to see this Tennessee defense get exposed, particularly in coverage as it relates to their linebacker play. And I think it's fine when you can bring pressure, but I think that, consistent second level pressure is going to cause you some problems when you can't cover. And I think the real biggest issue that I see with Tennessee is their coverage issues. So their defensive grades, and I want to make sure that I got that through this week. I thought that of the linebackers, I knew Beasley graded out the best, but Banks has graded out not nearly as well as I had hoped to at this point. But the overall linebackers I thought played this past week. So I look at my my film grade notes in my gradings there. Were a little bit better, relative to who they played against. And mainly that was that they really did a good job filling gaps against the run. The Pitt could not run the football, and we discussed it last week. Pitt was going to have to run the football. That's what they do. And they weren't able to do that. And so they forced Pitt to play left-handed, and that was a problem.
Hendon Hooker missed some passes, missed some throws on what looked like relatively easy completions. I'm a believer, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that there is a certain amount of innate ability to being accurate. I think it's like a free throw shooter. I think you can take a free throw shooter from 60% to 80%, but I don't know if you can ever make him Reggie Miller or Steph Curry or Ray Allen. And that's pretty much where I stand on Hendon Hooker. He can be a little more accurate at times down the field, but I don't think he's ever going to throw dimes on a consistent basis. Am I being too critical of him?
No, I think that's fair. Because I think this offense creates spacing and creates a lot of easy throws, quite a few of which he misses. And I think it leaves some plays on the field. And when you're a team that's going to need to score a bunch of points, in many cases to win a lot of these games, you can't miss as many throws. I also think because of that, I really don't like the fact that I don't like oftentimes they don't run the deep route, the back shoulder fade very effectively. They don't stay firm on what we call the red line, which is 5 yards from the end zone in, and there's very little space in which to drop the ball. So now you're asking a guy that sometimes struggles with accuracy, and you're asking him to fit it in a thimble. I mean, it's just a too small of an area. So when I look at it, I see some easy throws that sometimes he's late over the middle and some crossers, or he makes receivers really work the opposite side. He brings defenders in. So yeah, there's some. He's very, very spotty with that. And when you consider the fact that it is quarterback friendly offense, it is a little bit concerning. But here's the thing about it is I see Hendon Hooker as a good quarterback, improving. I think a lot of people, people have to create narratives in the offseason. Well, they've got this great quarterback, and look out, Hendon Hooker. He's not great, and he's never been great. He has gotten better from his time at Tech to here, and he's doing a good job. And I'm curious to see how much he evolves. But he's really good. Is he going to be a first rounder? Is he going to be a Hall of Fame? He's not. He's not that. So I think it's to me, it's more of what I've seen of him, what I expect of him. I do expect maybe a little bit more accuracy at times. So there are times where he's not quite, but I don't see him as this, elite guy that maybe some people did. And so he's really, really disappointing, it just happens. It's like right now they're apoplectic in Texas A&M because Haynes King is not accurate. He's not ready. And so the whole thing is just, it's like they're having a bonfire at A&M and they all want to jump in, it's just like and self-sacrifice. It's just, so I think a lot of it is there's a lot expected of Hendon Hooker to be great. And I don't think he's great. I think he's good. And I think he's doing a pretty good job. And I think He's going to get better. I think they're good receivers. I think the running game needs to get better. That's going to create more in coverage. And I really think they need to work the deep crossing routes a little bit more in the field. But Dave, across the middle of the field. But Dave, that can't happen until they run the football better. Because I think a lot of what they do now is they run that vertical stuff, and it's great. That's a big play waiting to happen, but not if you don't run the route correctly. Or it's not they don't run it correctly. They get pushed off that route. The defender pushes them into the boundary, and it's just there were a couple of throws that he made that were perfect on that route. You still can't get it in bounds. You got no chance. You're literally walking on a wire. So I think there's some areas that could be cleaned up on not play calling, but play development and teaching of a certain route, and you got to demand your guys can do that. So I'm encouraged, but I'm also realistic about what Hendon Hooker can and can't be.
I believe there was one player on Tennessee's roster that you said was the most or as talented as anybody on the roster, and he flashed a couple of times. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, so I'm going to ask you. But first, hit that like and subscribe button. Chalk Talk Chris Landry, brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue and Steve Ray's Midnight Oil. Again, hit that subscribe button. And Chris, it was Brew McCoy. We've seen some flashes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you said he was as talented, am I right, as anybody on Tennessee's roster just a couple of weeks ago? Is that right?
Yeah. And in fact, if you were grading him coming out of high school, he's the highest grade player on Tennessee's roster. That's not how you do it. He hadn't done anything since he's been in college. He's transferred, and it doesn't matter if you got talent if you don't really, you're not disciplined, don't play hard. So all those things we questioned and wondered about Brew McCoy. But there's one thing I never doubted: that guy's talent, and I think we've seen it. And what I hope he can continues to develop, because he causes you a lot of problems defensively to try to figure out how to deal with them. Tillman is really good. Brew McCoy is special good. If he's special talent that can be special good if it continues to develop. And I would think he'd be motivated in this offense to be really excited and about see what can he do for his future.
Yeah, because his financial future could be pretty fantastic. So I look at Tillman. I don't have the coach's eye you do, but I look at Tillman and McCoy, and I see McCoy's a little bit thicker, but I don't see a massive difference. You see a pretty significant difference. What makes him a better talent than Tillman?
No, I don't see a significant difference. I just think that what McCoy's I think Tillman's outstanding. I think he's outstanding college receiver. I think he's outstanding next level guy. I just think Brew McCoy's just kind of a difference maker. He's special. I think Tillman is really, really good. I think Tillman is more polished, more experienced, more nuanced as a route runner. I think he's a better receiver than McCoy. McCoy's just a better talent that I think can become a great receiver, a difference maker. So, look, if you look at it, for example, in the difference of the offense, and what is it? What are we really talking about here? Hooker last week was like 22 of 27 for 160 yards on short passes, 0 to 10 yards, 10 plus yards. He was 5 for 14. And now, but 165 yards and both of his touchdowns. So my point is, what does guys like McCoy and Tillman provide? This is not a deep ball passer quarterback, but when you have those type of weapons, those guys can go and take the game over for you. And so that's the difference. It's like, look at the number, 5 for 14. It's not, over 10 yards, 5 for 14. But look at that. When it's getting you, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns a game, and, almost 200 yards, that's big plays. And the numbers don't really look, all that impressive in terms of statistical accuracy, but for the big plays that can come out of it. And now with that, how are you going to play knowing that they've got the big play potential. So I'm now on defense trying to defend Tennessee. I'm having to keep safeties back, and all of a sudden, Tennessee should be able to run the football.
Yep.
And they should be, and then create the type of matchup. Then you work the middle because that's where you can pick your poison if you're trying to defend this offense. So this offense will click when the run game can force safeties out of the box, and you got to man cover either one of those receivers, and you can run it, and they respect the run. See, here's the other thing too. Hendon Hooker's inability to throw the football is directly correlated to their inability to run it.
Right.
Because if the defensive line doesn't respect your run, they're going to tee off, and Hendon Hooker's under pressure. And then but now you can run play action, play fake, you run tempo, they expect the run. They have to stop the run first defensively, and that gives you a little bit more time to get the deep ball. Can't throw that deep ball and get those chunk plays if you're under pressure and those routes don't have time to develop. So that's where it starts to all kind of fall into place.
Yep. He's Chris Landry. I'm Dave Hooker. Chalk Talk brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue and Steve Ray's Midnight Oil, a proud Michelin distributor. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.